In April of 1865, the end of the Civil War brought hope to thousands of Union prisoners of war, finally released from the horrors of Confederate camps like Andersonville, where starvation and disease had claimed 13,000 lives. But for over 2,000 souls aboard the steamboat Sultana, a nightmare of fire, scalding steam, and icy death was waiting. This is the story of America's deadliest maritime disaster, a tragedy drowned in the shadow of Abraham Lincoln's assassination. The Sultana, a 260-foot sidewheel steamboat under Captain James Cass Mason of St. Louis, departed for New Orleans on April 13, 1865. At Cairo, Illinois, Mason learned of Lincoln's assassination, who then quickly rushed south with newspapers spreading the news to a war-torn South. By April 21 at Vicksburg, a corrupt deal changed everything. Chief Quartermaster Reuben Hatch, a man with a history of fraud and shielded by political ties to Lincoln and General Grant, offered Mason $2.75 per enlisted man and $8 per officer to transport paroled prisoners north. Greed, sadly, blinded Mason to the risks. The Sultana's legal capacity was 376 passengers, but Hatch's mismanagement led to 1,950 gaunt prisoners, primarily from Ohio, Michigan, and Tennessee, crammed aboard, alongside 70 fare-paying civilians, 22 guards, and 85 crew. The total, 2,127 souls. Men stood shoulder to shoulder, some so weak from prison camp dysentery and malnutrition they could barely stand. A leaking boiler, hastily patched in Vicksburg with a thinner plate to save time, ticked like a time bomb. The repair, meant to take days, was honestly rushed in just hours to keep the lucrative load. Mississippi's spring floods, swelling the river to 3 miles wide, added strain as the top-heavy vessel listed violently. On April 26, the Sultana stopped at Helena, Arkansas, where photographer Thomas W. Banks captured its grotesque overcrowding, a haunting image of doom. By midnight, after unloading sugar at Memphis, the vessel took on coal and pressed north. At 2 a.m. on April 27, 7 miles north of Memphis, catastrophe struck. The faulty boiler, weakened by brittle charcoal-hammered No. 1 metal and clogged with Mississippi's muddy sediment, erupted in a deafening blast. 2 more boilers exploded a split second later, sending a 45-degree inferno skyward. The explosion tore a 30-foot gash through the Sultana's heart, vaporizing dozens instantly. Scalding steam cooked men alive, their screams swallowed by the night. Splintered wood impaled bodies, the starboard smokestack crashed into the wreckage, crushing passengers. The port smokestack collapsed forward, smashing the ship's bell and pinning men beneath flaming debris. The upper deck buckled, spilling victims into exposed furnace boxes below, where fire consumed them. Survivors, many too weak to swim, leapt into the frigid, flood-swollen Mississippi, where hypothermia claimed hundreds. Clusters of men clung to each other, drowning in tangled masses as the current swept them away. The Sultana became a drifting inferno, its pilot house obliterated, leaving no one to steer. By 2:30 a.m., the steamboat Bostona, on its maiden voyage, arrived, plucking scores from the water. Memphis's waterfront, alerted by desperate cries, launched rescue boats. The USS Essex, Pocahontas, and other vessels joined, pulling survivors from treetops and debris. The Sultana's hulk drifted 6 miles to Marion, Arkansas, burning to the waterline and sinking by 7 a.m. Captain Mason, and over 1,100 others perished. Estimates range up to 1,547, surpassing the Titanic's death toll. Bodies washed ashore for months, some found 200 miles away in Vicksburg. Memphis, which served as a Union supply hub, treated 760 survivors with advanced medical care, though, sadly, 31 succumbed by June. Locals, even under occupation, showed real compassion, raising funds through benefits like the Chicago Opera Troupe's performance. The dead were buried at Fort Pickering and later moved to Memphis National Cemetery. Survivors went on to form the National Sultana Survivors Association, meeting each year in Ohio and Tennessee. The last survivor, Charles M. Eldridge, passed away in 1941 at the age of 96, still carrying the memories of that horrific night. Investigations pointed to a deadly trifecta. The boiler's flawed, tubular design, sediment buildup, and low water levels from the ship's careening. In 2015, a study by Pat Jennings of Hartford Steam Boiler confirmed that brittle metal and poor maintenance just amplified the disaster, which led to the phase-out of tubular boilers on Mississippi steamboats. Theories of sabotage, like a coal torpedo or vengeful sabotage, were dismissed since the explosion's location just didn't fit those claims. Quartermaster Hatch, whose corruption fueled the overload, managed to evade justice and died in 1871. The Sultana's wreck now lies buried beneath farmland as the Mississippi's course has shifted over time. Memorials in Memphis, Mansfield, Ohio, and Knoxville stand as solemn tributes. Overshadowed by Lincoln's death, this tragedy, born of greed, negligence, and unimaginable horror, remains America's deadliest maritime disaster, a grim reminder of lives lost in the war's final days. The Sultana's story, etched in fire and blood, honors both the fallen and the survivors who carried its scars. Their resilience honestly endures. Subscribe to Shortfactwizard for more stories from history.